Could these be the answer to that cluttered bench or windowsill full of seedlings? I've tried it myself and I can already tell it's going to transform the way I start seeds. It saves an extraordinary amount of space and money too, and it makes potting on a doddle. Let me show you. These are called seed snails. Yes, and at last, a snail that's actually good news for the garden. It's called a seed snail because it spirals round just like the shell of a snail, with the seedlings popping out throughout. So let's dive straight in and make one, and here comes its first advantage. It does away with the need for the likes of pots, plug trays and seed trays. Instead, all we're going to be using is strips of plastic like this to get our seeds underway. And compare these rolls with plug trays like this. If you're short on space, especially in the busy spring months, using rolls like this can really help to pack the seedlings in. Any sort of old packaging is ideal for making our seed snails, or you could call them seed sushi rolls if you're a little bit more cosmopolitan. Anyway, there's that, and you could also use other plastics too, but my absolute favourite, I reckon, is this, bubble plastic or bubble wrap. This, with its air pockets, helps to create a slightly sturdier roll so it sits firmer, and the air pockets will also help to insulate the roots from swings in temperature, which our seedlings will much prefer. Bubble wrap is flexible, retains moisture well, and can be reused time and again. So many deliveries come in this stuff, and being able to use it to make seed snail rolls is a fantastic way to get more use out of it before you eventually recycle it. But if you are worried about microplastics getting into the seedlings you're growing, but want to use the benefits of bubble wrap, I've got you covered, and I'll be showing you a way around that in a bit. There are straight up alternatives to plastic. You could use a few layers of some sort of waxed paper, some sort of corrugated cardboard like this, as I'll show you in a minute, and you might think you could use newspaper, but I wouldn't bother with this because the roots can sort of grow into it and it is very, very flimsy and it'll fall apart just when you're trying to unroll your snail. Not helpful. So let's start by cutting down our bubble plastic into strips that we can then roll up. Now I reckon from experience already I've found that a good sturdy chopping board and a really sharp knife are the best tools, and then a good straight ruler or guide like that as well, and then you can just slide effortlessly along like that. Now for the height of our roll, anything upwards of sort of 3 inches or 7 centimetres is fine, and then for deeper rooted things like say beans or corn, you might want to go at least 6 inches or 15 centimetres depth or more. And then for the kind of length, anywhere between 1 or 2 foot or around 50 centimetres or so is perfect. Jolly good. Now let's turn our attention to our seed starting or potting mix. And for that, I will be using an all-purpose mix suitable for both seedlings and young plants. Now this is a mix I made myself. It's very easy to do, and I will share a video on how to do that in the description below. It contains enough nutrients to support our young plants until it's finally time to unravel that roll and then plant them elsewhere. And I will be sharing a table of the best vegetables to grow in these seed snails shortly. Before I use this mix, I want to prime it by adding in some water there to get it nice and moist throughout. If you think about a seed roll, it's going to be a little bit deeper than your average plug or seed tray. So by doing this, I'm ensuring that there's a good consistent moisture throughout. We're kind of priming it so that it receives further kind of irrigation or water a little bit easier. Also, if it's slightly moister, it'll help it kind of stick to our plastic a little bit easier so it holds nice and firm when we come to roll it up. And if I take some in my hand, you can see that it's just about the odd drop, but it's not sopping wet, so that is absolutely perfect. Brilliant, let's get on and lay on our potting mix. Now you can aim for a depth anywhere from 1/2 to 2 inches, that's kind of 1 to 5 centimetres. At the lower end of that scale, you'd be looking at smaller seeds like say cabbage family ones or lettuce or basil, something like that. And then at the higher end, the 2 inches or 5 centimetre thickness of potting mix would be for bigger seeds like squash family ones, for example. Now I'm taking a bit of time to load up our roll, and we want to get a nice packed kind of edging like that, especially towards the bottom, so it has support for it to stand up on. Break up any lumps as you go and just fill it up like this and just pat it down nicely as you go. There we go. This is quite a satisfying process actually. And I'd leave the very end here unpacked because that'll help us secure it at the end, as you'll see in a minute. Right, I think we're there. Let's roll. Okay, so we want to firm gently but firmly, so don't push it down, but just let it roll like this. And I tell you what, do you know what this reminds me of? It reminds me of making sushi. The potting mix has kind of got the same sort of consistency as rice, and we've got to just gently roll. Now, if a bit does fall out the bottom, that's fine. And there we go, look at that. If it kind of comes to the end like that, we can just squish away the excess like that. And now turn it upright. And that's a perfect looking roll in my opinion. And now to seal up the roll, I like to sort of just dry it off a bit so I can put on some painter's tape or masking tape like this and just seal it shut. This is a lot easier if you kind of jam your roll up against something to kind of hold it in place. And there we go. We're good to sew. And there we have it. What we have is a compact, sturdy roll that's nice and tall that will encourage the roots to sort of grow downwards. And it doesn't use loads of potting mix, just enough to do the job. But if you want the advantages of bubble plastic but don't want those roots coming in contact with plastic, here is my workaround. I've cut some baking paper or baking parchment so it is twice the height of our bubble plastic strip here. That means I can now make a fold along the middle like this and then pop my plastic inside like that, fold it over, and now it's completely contained. And now I can load it up with our potting mix and roll it exactly as before. There we are, all safely contained, and now I can just seal it up as before with our tape here. Because the plastic here is covered, it'll be really easy to rinse it off at the end of the growing season, dry it off, and then store it somewhere dark, ready to use next growing season. And I love this method because it really elevates the seed snail. It makes it all a bit more natural, so we're not getting any more plastic into our garden. Ha-ha! Now cardboard is another option, maybe less kind of sturdy or long lasting than the sort of bubble plastic, but it might last just long enough for kind of quick growing seedlings. But I am using corrugated cardboard and I'm sort of priming it, pre-rolling it like this. And that will make it a lot easier to roll once it is loaded up with my potting mix. Do peel off any kind of bits of label or, you know, that kind of stringy stuff you get that uses to bind it all together, and then roll it up as before. Rolling, rolling, rolling. Now for this, because it is a bit sort of mushy and it's going to get kind of wet when it's watered, I'm going to seal it up with a couple of rubber or elastic bands. These are beautifully tactile, and I would say if you've got a longer piece of cardboard, you'll get a sort of much more spirally snail. Once you're all rolled up, we are good to sow. Now don't be tempted to sow before rolling, because what will happen is the seeds will all get dislodged and they won't be at the correct depth. They'll just move about a bit. So only do it at this stage. Now for these cabbage seeds, I'm going to start in the middle of the spiral and then just try and carefully drop a seed in about every ½ inch or 1 centimetre like this. Now because the potting mix I used is a bit sort of claggy and wet, I'm going to use a finer kind of seed starting mix just to cover them over, but you could use anything you got really. I just want it to look pretty on camera. And there we go, then just wet the top here with a little bit more water to get those seeds underway. Now for bigger seeds that like perhaps a deeper root system, you can use obviously taller seed rolls like this. So this one here is what, sort of 6 or 7 inches or 15 to sort of 17 centimetres. And I'm going to be sowing some really cheerful sweet peas, which are going to grow up a trellis and look absolutely stunning. So for these, all I'm doing is actually just dibbering an individual hole for each kind of seed like this and then popping it in like that. Honestly, this method is just brilliant for a wide range of seeds, from warm season favourites like tomatoes, peppers and corn, to allotment staples such as leeks, lettuce and anything in the cabbage family. Now keep the tops of these rolls nicely moist by regular misting or carefully watering as they come up. You can also, for kind of smaller seeds, pop over a bag like this just to help retain some of the moisture. Or another option is to pack them into some sort of humidity dome type thing or unheated propagator like this. Not so much for the added warmth, more just to help retain some of that moisture, so you're creating a humid environment, so you need to water a little less often. Now, however you're going to grow them, I like to pack them into a tray just to keep them nice and sort of firm and upright, although they are pretty sturdy rolls in fairness. And this is where we're really seeing this advantage of them taking up so much less space. You can imagine these sitting neatly on a kind of kitchen windowsill or something. Contrast that with several kind of plug trays like this. And because they're so much deeper, we're going to get a lovely deep running root system, which will more than compensate for the slightly closer spacing we've got here. So here are those seed snails that I sowed a few weeks ago, and let me show you another reason why they really shine, and this is perhaps my favourite reason. When they're big enough, all you need to do is remove the tape and then unfurl them, and now look at this. There we go, how satisfying. Lots of individual, beautiful seedlings with deliciously long roots ready to use and pot on or grow on. The beautiful thing about this is I can lift up a clump like this and the seedlings just come away so easily like that to work with. The roots aren't all tangled like in a pot, and look at the length of that root. Goodness me. For seedlings that just need a little bit more potting mix, carefully unroll your snail, so satisfying, and then go in and add just a little bit more potting mix over the top of those exposed roots like this. And then reposition any seedlings that might have become a bit dislodged, and then re-roll your now fatter seed snail. Or for little seedlings that need more room altogether, you can actually separate them out and then pop them into slightly larger, slightly deeper seed snail rolls rather, like this. So these are tomatoes, and I can space them a bit further than they were in their kind of original roll there. And then just a little bit more potting mix over the top. Now these are tomatoes, so they're going a little bit deeper than most seedlings. This method is so good for all sorts of plants that might not be ready to go out yet, sort of like tomatoes, squashes, corn and so on. There we are. And now let's give it a roll. You might notice that for some crops the seedlings end up being just a tiny bit smaller than if they were grown in pots, but in all honesty they will very, very quickly catch up, and think about all the space you've saved. And also it's going to be a lot easier when you need to acclimatise or harden off plants just to move this outside rather than lugging all sorts of pots and seed trays out. It makes it a lot easier. Because there's slightly less potting mix, seed snails will need careful monitoring just to make sure they do have enough moisture and are happy. But you'll find that cold season crops, like for example cabbages, onions and leeks and so on, those rolls can be settled into soil outside to grow on down into the soil itself till you are ready to plant, freeing up valuable space inside. Seed snails are a game-changing way to start seeds. They're simple, flexible, space-saving and incredibly satisfying to use. Whether you're short on space, potting mix, or just fancy giving something new a try, I would say it's well worth a go. I'll catch you next time.